Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Hi, this is Jess.
And Brie.
And we are Dungeons and Dopamine. So this is listening back on... Oh, sorry. This is episode 41.
Yay!
Fail. And I'm fired as a podcaster.
Seeking applications. New podcast host needed. Must be weird enough to get along with Brie.
Must have free bathroom to record it.
And also editing skills, because I still can't do that. Or could you stay on and do the editing for us?
That would
be great.
No problem.
There's no
I didn't fail
payment.
at that. Unless I cut that part out and leave this part in.
I hope you do.
Everyone's like, this is just getting stupider and stupider. I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something in episodes.
Yes, we were talking about episodes.
This is 41, which is pretty cool. That's a pretty big number.
Mm-hmm.
I listened back, and we are pretty good. Like a 60 to 70% goodness.
Okay.
On the Dungeons
C-
and Dopamine thing.
Oh,
Like, we do a pretty good job.
that is impressive.
And usually when we don't, it's because of me.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes the beginning of the episode, I'm just like, who? What? Where?
I did listen to one the other day where I remember it so perfect. You had gotten super excited when you said hello.
Hello!
And we both laughed until we cried and had to restart the whole thing.
Sounds about right.
And like just listening to us still laughing, because I think I was crying. But listening to us still laughing about it made me laugh really hard.
I'm actually surprised we don't have to do that more often, to be honest.
A lot of the little cartoon things that I make, the little commercials, I cut off our laughter way before it actually ends.
Where were we recently? Shoot. We were somewhere recently, me and you and a group of people.
Was it D&D?
Was it you and I laughing hysterically until everybody was irritated with us? Because it was that time.
I think it was me and you in Brighton, all laughing together.
I think you're right.
I don't think...
He would be a good addition.
Absolutely. He should apply for my job.
He should.
Here, not my actual job.
I mean, both. He could just replace you.
Brighton Jessica.
I've always wanted to have a stand-in.
Because I'm ever sick. We'll just have Brighton and Ryan come up here and do the show.
Perfect.
They give off the same energy.
It's true.
Less cool,
Obviously.
but the same.
A little less funny.
So let's go back to our D&D story, because we're super cool.
Right.
So I don't remember what we were laughing about. I do remember that we were crying.
Yes.
But I also made a joke that night because I bought myself these killer Blue's Clues salt and pepper and spice jars. They're Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper and Paprika and the new babies from the new Blue's Clues.
Which is weird.
Wild. So Brighton looked at them, put them back, because right now his daughter is mega into Blue's Clues. So they're in that lucky phase.
Connor never did that. It's very disappointing.
I feel like we missed like the new Blue's Clues.
Yeah.
Like
Our kids were
just
aging
missed
out. And, I mean, we watched Blue's Clues in high school.
Absolutely.
But whatever.
I have my Blues doll still.
Of course
Anyway, so I pointed behind Brighton and I couldn't get the words out because I was laughing so hard. But I was like, that's assault. But
Which always makes me laugh anyway.
I know.
Excuse us. We are both
Laughing
recovering
too
from
hard.
plagues as well.
So yeah. And that happens again tomorrow night.
Hey, Jessica, did you hear about the peanut that was walking through the parking lot?
Please tell me.
He was assaulted.
Thank you, Christina. That's always my go-to joke.
It's the best one.
For real. And I laughed, and Brighton was like, you could have just said, like, airline food, am I right? And it would have been the same caliber of joke.
True.
But yeah, I feel like he's part of the clique now.
He's blending in quite well.
I think so, which should frighten him.
That's very true.
Be afraid. So I have something I wanted to talk to you about that I just thought of before we started recording, and then we could have talked about it before we started recording, but we can't.
So now we have to do it live.
Exactly. So I'm on TikTok all the time, obviously. That's like my hobby now. I don't know. Anyway.
One of us has to.
I'm just doing it for both of our time.
Yeah. See?
I'm doing a service. So I came across this lady who was like making fun of someone who had done a treatment on, it was a beautiful old stone fireplace from like the 70s. It was gorgeous. It was kind of shaped like a genie bottle almost. It was beautiful.
The people that ruined it with the white caulk schmeary situation.
The German schmear. Smear. I don't think it's a schmear. I think that's food.
Schmear.
So I was like, oh yeah, that was dumb. They shouldn't have done that. But then it popped up again on TikTok today, and I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty ugly. And they also put up like a styrofoam beam that everyone said looked like a Tootsie Roll or something. I thought the beam was fine, aside from that they hung a light from the center of the beam, which would have been a really weird, you couldn't have done that with a wooden beam, which gave it away. But I went and found this couple because I wanted to see what else they had done to the house. And apparently they were flippers and stuff like that. But from what I can tell, they bought this house. They have had to stop making videos because TikTok treated them so badly. People were sending them death threats and telling them they hoped that one of their family members got cancer.
I hate the internet.
I started reporting everyone who was making fun of it.
Good.
I'm not normally like a keyboard warrior, and I typed out a reply to this girl that was like, these people are being threatened by death just because you don't like the way they did their fireplace. And I don't like it either.
But you would never consider sending people death threats over it.
If you...
Nothing...
No!
I don't care about anything except for my child enough to threaten death to someone else. It's just... Like, I can't imagine being so upset by someone's decorating choices that I have to go to my phone and type death threats to them.
Your mother gets cancer.
I just... I don't get people. And the internet makes it way worse.
Oh, yeah, because you're hidden behind your keyboard. And
even if you're not anonymous on whatever platform you're responding on, you feel anonymous because there are 1,000 other people responding and saying awful things. So you feel like, well, I assume these people feel like they can just jump on the bandwagon, and it's awful.
I thought about, as I was typing out a response to this girl, and I was like, these people are suffering, literally suffering, because other people are making fun of a fireplace. And I stopped myself and I was like, you know what? My podcast reaches 50 people a week if I'm lucky. But those 50 people might see that, and I don't need to be a part of that.
Right.
I'm just going to report them. And that's what I chose to. And now I will do it on every one of those.
That's such a good idea.
People do not deserve to live like that.
Right.
They were sharing, and if they're happy, who cares?
People like ugly things. I don't know if you know this, but I like pink flamingos. It's like the cheesiest thing that's ever existed, and I think they are beautiful.
They actually are really cute.
I hope no one would ever send me death threats over that.
I love orcas. I have orcas decorating my home. One of my bathrooms is Skyrim themed.
Be careful. The internet warriors might come after
Someone is gonna come Fusro my ass.
Can't believe you would decorate with video games. You're an adult. What's wrong with you? Go die.
Don't you have hobbies?
Yeah.
I hope your mom has cancer. Gah! No, that just disgusted me. So anyway, Do you want to hear more disgusting stories?
Always.
So I talked about cults for a couple weeks. I told you guys some really good cult stories about different psychotic cults. I told you guys how to join a cult. And now I want to tell you what happens after you leave a cult.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned this last time, but it's actually fairly easy to leave most cults. You can walk out of the majority of cults. It's not going to be a big deal.
Really?
I think I mentioned 90% of people end up leaving their cults.
Oh, that's right.
Or their cults like get disband, or basically 90% of people who enter a cult will leave it. Whatever. Anyway, that's very professional of me. Whatever. But did you know that once you leave the cult, you will have some insane mental scars left in your life?
I could see it.
So what happens is that, they fully brainwash you. You just can't start functioning like you're supposed to again.
Well, and it's become your whole world, basically.
Yes.
Because that's what we've learned is that's the point. They want to separate you from your family, from your friends. They want to change your thinking. They want you fully dependent on the cult.
And a lot of them have taught you that, footballs are actually dragon hides, and we need to,
Wait, was there a cult that believed that footballs were made of dragon hides?
That's
because
my cult.
Can I join?
You absolutely can.
I'm already in it.
My dragon football cult.
Let's be honest. I've been in your cult since the 4th grade.
I'd apologize, but I'm not sorry. But no, really, they come up with such... Well, let's go with Scientology. I avoided talking about them, but they believe that only a certain number of them are going to be saved, that there's aliens or something. I can't even quite understand. Yeah. And that you have to pay money and learn their doctrination stuff to become a member and to be saved at the end of all of this. First, gonna actually tell you some stories of people who have left cults.
Yay! Happy stories. Hopefully.
They all have good happy endings.
Good preface.
Oh, and I'm changing this up because I feel like a really good transition here because I want to talk about Katie Holmes.
All right. Gosh, I love Katie Holmes.
I do too, and I'm really glad she got the heck out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I did a lot of unfortunate research. Yes, this is my research.
Jessica's notes are super detailed, you guys.
It's a piece of paper that I ripped out of my 2023 calendar that I had scribbled notes on while I was listening to the YouTube video.
And if
videos.
Jessica got pulled over with these notes in her car, she would have some trouble. It starts with burner phones.
And then Dad, high-powered lawyer. Don't worry about it.
Get the kid out.
Yes.
Not sus at all.
So, a good wrap-up of Katie Holmes. She's an actress. She's young. She's adorable. She's very pretty, very beautiful.
She was in all the 90s movies.
And she looks
early
sweet
2000s.
and innocent, but still just gorgeous at the same time. And Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Tom Kidman.
I mean, he should have taken her last name.
This is a wreck. I don't know how to podcast anymore. I quit. Brighton is going to be so much better at this.
Episode 42 is when things got really weird. 41 was kind of okay, and then 42 just...
is a mess. So, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman had just been divorced. And the rumor is that Scientology needed to bring in someone who was impressive, but also maybe young and naive, as cults do, and they could pair up with Tom. Ugh. Ugh. I also, can we just sidebar here and say, I don't find Tom Cruise in the least attractive.
Have you seen the meme where it shows you that, yes, that his front tooth is in the middle of his face?
Yeah.
And ever since then, I just can't look at him. I mean, I've never found him super attractive anyway. Yeah. But once you see that his face is all weird symmetrically and his tooth is right in the middle of his face, it's so weird. He's obviously, like, bionically made or something.
Yeah, there's something wrong. I mean, Brad Pitt, sure, I could have seen the appeal. Even now, he's still fairly attractive.
Yeah.
No, not Tom Cruise.
No.
Anyway, that was a total sidebar.
Plus, he's so short.
Oh,
as a short person.
Oh, anyway. So they brought
We're totally gonna get murdered for this episode. If we end up dead, it's Jessica's fault, and
That's
it's
why I moved
Scientology.
upstairs instead of doing it downstairs anymore. They bring Katie in. I don't know how they introduced them or anything, but they brought her in, and they obviously hooked them up. Katie and Tom got married. They got married fairly quickly, and they had a baby. As the marriage went on, Katie was obviously pretty unhappy about it and very uncomfortable in it. So she started working on a movie, and this is all 100% speculation. She started working on a movie with Adam Sandler, and she barely had any point in the movie and barely any screen time. She was on set a lot. There's a lot of people who speculate that he was helping her to escape. Some of the things that we do know for sure, besides that speculation about the Adam Sandler movie, is that Holmes carried a lot of burner phones, that she had a lot of meetings with her father, who was a very high-powered lawyer, that she was always trailed by a handler and would have to escape that handler to go like work with her dad and stuff like that. She wanted to get Surrey out, and that was her main like point of doing what she did. When she finally delivered those papers, or her lawyer delivered those papers to Cruise, he was completely like,
unhinged.
Yeah, he said it came out of nowhere. Probably because he's Delulu.
Probably because yeah.
And so she agreed to stay out of the like dating scene publicly for 5 years. She agreed that she signed papers that she would never flaunt her relationships out in the public again. I think it's because something about not embarrassing him.
What a dweeb.
And also the guy who runs Scientology, the head Scientologist, he was like besties with Cruise, so they were there all the time. Psycho. So she did sign all those papers, and she was like, fine, I don't care, I just want to get away from you and my kid. And it was rumored that she was trailed for a long time after the divorce so that they could watch what she was doing and secrets she might share and stuff like that.
That's crazy. If your religion requires you to sign an NDA,
oh my gosh,
I would assume it is the wrong religion.
How dare you? I was just bringing up my NDA about the dragon skin football cult, and you know what? I don't even care. You're not invited.
Oh, but we do everything together.
I got nothing to follow that up.
You're like, oh, she's right.
She's right. I can't make any comments because she's right. So these are some very general stories that I just picked up and I wanted to share because I wanted to share some of the different experiences. In my opinion, Katie Holmes's experience is scary. I wouldn't want to do that.
Now,
sorry.
And maybe I'll answer this, but in your reading, did you find that a lot of women leave these situations because of their children?
I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say that it's probably 50-50. There are women who have joined cults because they believe it's the right thing for their children. Oh. And there are women who have taken their children out. I actually have a story about one.
All right.
I actually have a story about both of those, which
Perfect.
is really ironic. So this woman, I believe she lived in Korea, and her mother had cancer. She found out. Her mother had called her and told her, I will not go get my cancer treatment unless you come to my church with me. Yeah. She was like, okay.
Great.
Duh. So she went to the church with her, and she didn't like it, obviously. But the mother went and got the treatment. Then the mother called her and said, I got my treatment. I need you to come to Fiji with me for 14 days so I can recover. So she did. I know, right?
Darn.
Let's figure out what this cult was.
Did you get a name or a phone number? Hi, I'd like to cult, please.
Just for a weekend.
I hear there's Fiji.
Exactly. So they arrived. They flew in. They were going to be there for 14 days. They had tickets to leave once they were there. And her mother took her to the cult's compound in Fiji. And she said she was really afraid being there. It was very scary. But she didn't complain or kick up too much of a fuss because she knew that she had a ticket to leave after 14 days. On that 13th day, she was gathering all her stuff up and getting ready to leave and realized her mother had hidden her passport.
Oh, no.
And her laptop computer. So the woman just literally made a run for it.
She was like, this is creepy. I'm going to go.
She hoofed it. And as she was running away, her mother was standing back in the compound yelling at the other members of the cult to go catch her daughter.
Oh my gosh.
But she did make it home to Korea and obviously does not talk to her mother any longer.
That's terrifying.
Right?
Like, I would be so mad at my mom if she lured me into a cult.
I mean, I don't know. You should give her some leeway. She did take you to Fiji.
True.
She probably had to pay for both of them to get there.
How do you try to explain that away? Like, if they had caught her and brought her back, and would her mom have been like, "This is for your own good"?
Yeah, probably. Ugh. This one is actually the opposite. So, this woman was born into the cult.
Okay.
It was one of those cults where they drain all of the resources from their members, so that the top it's a pyramid scheme. Top of the pyramid is rich. Everybody on the bottom is funneling their money upward. And I'm not actually talking about an MLM.
I mean,
not that they're any different. So this girl was raised in the cult, and until she was 11 years old, which is when her biological mother, whom she'd been separated from, came to get her and took her away from the cult. Thing is, this girl did not think she had been in a cult. She spent 7 years fighting her biological mother to go back.
Oh no. And
when she turned 18, she did. Thankfully, when she got back, she did look around and realize,
oh,
wow, yeah, maybe you're right.
Mom was right.
Probably at 11, they weren't culty to her. And being surrounded by it your whole life, that would seem normal.
So, was it her dad that was raising her in the cult?
It didn't tell me much. I mean, it was very vague. I think it was literally to keep her identity safe.
Right. That makes sense.
But, yeah.
Wow.
It's really wild. This brother and sister were born into a cult. It was in like the 60s. They were abused constantly in many different ways. The boy had a nervous breakdown at one point, and they sent him away from the cult because you can't have any of that crazy here.
Right. We only have well-respected, smart, stable people in our cult.
And then the woman was being punished. It was a man was about to use corporal punishment on her, and she attacked him back, and she was thrown out of the cult. Unfortunately, both of them suffered big consequences.
Big quantities of consequences.
Yes. I'm not laughing at their circumstances, but
we have to laugh or we'll
inability
cry.
To function. They had a lot of consequences. They both were dependent on substances, and he actually lived homeless for a while because they couldn't function.
Yeah.
And eventually they did pull it together and they did okay near the end of their lives.
I don't even know, like, are there resources for people that have lived in cults their whole life to be, like, deprogrammed?
Why don't I tell you about that?
Yes!
First of all, there are a ton of resources online about help after cults.
Oh, good.
There are psychologists who specialize in life after cults.
Really?
The website I found is one such psychologist, and it's abuseresources.com, which is a, great.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're in an abusive relationship, that's not that far off from being a cult.
Truly not. And sexual trafficking, and So
they all need some sort of deprogramming.
Absolutely. So I want to first kind of tell you what some of these cult members go through. Ex-cult members, I should start calling them now.
Mm-hmm.
After you've been in the cult, you are burdened with like a sense of purposelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Loki, who is burdened with a glorious purpose.
It's true. We should all be more like Loki.
I laid that out in front of myself somehow to just walk right in. Didn't mean to.
But sometimes that just works out the way it's supposed to.
My brain did that for me. Thanks, brain. They do also obviously face depression.
Mm-hmm.
They grieve for other members that they've left behind. They feel a lot of guilt, and that's actually, it's guilt for the people they've left behind, guilt for the trail of destruction they may have left, and guilt for way past when they cut everyone out of their lives, and guilt for moving forward. They literally can't function.
They're just guilty
everything.
All the time.
That's the one that bothers me the most, not because it's not real, but because it would be such a difficult one to get past. They feel a lot of anger, obviously. Anger toward the group, the leader, maybe toward their parents for allowing them to be taken in, and not
or whoever let them be.
And it's not like
or lured them to Fiji.
For real. It's not like a lot of people, like the girl who I was talking about last week on the TikTok girl. Her parents didn't let her go. She just did, and she cut them off. But it would be easy to blame someone else because it was a bad situation.
Right.
They do feel alienated because they've obviously lost their group. And before they entered the group, pushed away everybody they loved.
Mm-hmm.
Same line, isolation. Even from the world. Because those cults want to keep you away from the internet and television and news. So now you've come out into a world almost like, wow, I'm full of Marvel references. Almost like Captain America after he was on Frozen.
I was going to go with like prisoners that come out of long-term incarceration and into a world that has changed.
Captain America's prettier.
True.
Actually, Bucky Barnes. Let's go with Bucky.
Okay.
All for a metal arm. These
did not know you were into that.
There's no one who's dressed like Bucky at the Comic-Con is going to come near our booth. No, avoid that. No.
Not that booth.
That girl's crazy. Unless you're Sebastian Stan, you're totally safe. Anyway, these people will often feel distrust, and it is literally in everything around them.
Right.
People, things, promises.
Well, gosh, you probably don't even trust yourself at that point.
Yeah.
Because you either let yourself be taken over by this cult or lived in this situation where you believed this for so long.
I can't imagine. Like, it would be like you coming to me and telling me suddenly that the sky is actually not blue.
Right.
But that everyone I've spoken to has told me that my whole life.
Yeah.
And that's a really absurd example.
Everyone you've ever known has been lying to you.
Yeah. They just...
everything you've ever known was wrong.
And you hand me a pair of glasses that shows me that you were right. And now what?
Gosh, it's terrifying.
They do also have a fear of going crazy. which I think coincides really well with that. There is also a fear in them still that what the cult said was going to happen will happen. And that's whether they've, threatened them as a person or Scientology. Whatever's coming is coming.
Now I'm not going to get into heaven because I left my situation.
There were some that aliens were going to come and only you could. That's what Scientology is, that only a certain amount of people will fit in their ship.
Oh, that's right.
They do also have a tendency to think in terms of black or white because of the cult. There's no gray area, which does not work for our podcast.
Which does not work for life.
And they
question the narrative of the cults.
Question them, except ours.
Right.
Dungeons and Dopamine magazine says the dragon skin football cult is where it's at.
The glitter cult's probably okay too.
The same leader.
You have a lot of cults.
I have no comment. Mostly because I can't think of anything smart to say.
You should work on that before you start marketing your cults.
I'll try. I should maybe find a different leader. Maybe one of those charismatic folks that knows what to say in every situation. Doesn't just come up with sarcastic quips forever.
We're going to have so many job ads after today's episode. We need a new cult leader. We need some backup podcast hosts.
My face hurts from laughing. All right. They will also spiritualize everything. This is a list that you can also find on this website, but it will give you further information on it. I'm just going through it kind of quickly. An inability to make decisions, probably out of fear from making the wrong one, because
they might have already done that a handful of times.
And the cult has done all the thinking for you. You didn't have a chance. They often have low self-esteem, which I think a lot of people who get into cults did in the first place.
Right. That was probably a problem to start with.
And now it's worse. Embarrassment, which...
Especially if you had people in your life trying to keep you from joining the cult.
Yes. And, and if your cult was famous, like the Nexium cult, that was the one that the girl from Smallville was in, which was devastating for me. They do often have employment problems. They have a huge gap in their history.
No experience.
They're usually beaten down and... Yeah. Disassociation. And also floating, which you'll be laying on the couch or something and suddenly you're just kind of floating in the void.
Okay.
But this is something they'll do if they just sit down at their kitchen table as a coping mechanism.
Like extreme dissociation.
Yes.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
I hadn't either, which it really surprised me. And that's kind of, I know I looked at you a weird way when I said that because I thought it was a really weird thing.
I was like, I don't know what that means. Do they literally float?
You'll float too.
All you have to do is join this cult and then leave it.
It's a red balloon cult. It's
I would
run
join
by
that
a
one
clown.
too. Oh no, different red balloon.
It's an
There'd have
thing.
to be 99 of them though.
99 red balloons
floating in the summer sky.
I wish I could have sang it in German.
You should work on that. Your German is so good.
9. That's just a number. They also have trouble with nightmares, family issues, dependency issues, sexuality issues, spiritual issues. A lot of times they face frustration with how long it takes them to recover.
Yeah.
One of the things that is said to help them recover the most is actually learning everything I just told you over the last 3 weeks. Maybe not about different cults, but...
They're like, let me tell you about the other cults you could have joined.
You really missed the mark on this red balloon clown cult.
There was a 99 red balloons cult that you could have joined.
They floated away. But
and that makes sense, though.
Yeah.
To show them, like, here's how they tricked you into this. And you're not the only one. There are millions of people that are sucked in by these cults. That, like, Leader Bob was a shisty
manipulative, bad dude, and you weren't stupid. He was just charismatic enough. He made you feel good. And
they tricked you with all of, they love bombed you.
All these sparkly things.
Yeah.
How great is it going to be to join us? And I think
cults are awful, but skults.
That's next level. Join us next week.
Jessica talks about skults. It's like skull cults. That's the only thing I could think of.
You hold a skull while you're in it all the time. That's it.
And say Shakespeare lines.
Recites Shakespearean quotation.
Thank you for that.
Oh, man. This episode has been wild. This has been a trip.
Yep, it has.
So,
and my topic's not gonna make it any better, so.
I did want to mention too that a lot of children born into cults will leave the cults, have absolutely nothing because their families will not they won't send them away like maybe our families did. I got to bring some of my furniture, all of my clothes. My mom wanted all my crap out of her house. Your stuff.
At that point, my parents are still forcing me to take stuff out of their house.
These parents, once you walk out of their little bubble, you're dead to them.
I mean, some of them are lucky to bring a bag with them. It might just be the clothes that they're wearing.
Yep.
Like when you have to escape Fiji.
Yep, exactly. And they don't have any real world skills because they've been raised and brainwashed in these cults. And I had a story about a guy who watched his family behind closed doors make plans with a set of grandparents who were already out of the cult. They tried to leave. The cult came and screamed at the mother while she was alone, and she was weeping and terrified. And they went to the father and said, "We know this is her fault. If you stay, but send her away, we'll forgive you, and you can stay with your children, and there will be no blame." And they did end up leaving altogether.
Oh, good.
But then they never saw the family that was a part of the cult ever again.
So even the Latter-day Saints church,
a
lot of people will talk about that as being cult-like. And that's the same thing. If you leave that religion, they excommunicate you. You're not allowed to see your family, talk to your family, the friends that you've grown up with. Everybody just has to basically act like you don't exist.
One of my stories is about a Latter-day Saint. She would beat this boy. He was beaten with wooden cutting boards so many times that she broke 2 of them over his back. And he finally got taken away when she beat his brother so badly he went into a coma.
Oh.
And she was investigated, and finally they escaped. But she was, a saint.
Yeah, just a leader in the group, doing what she's told. Wow.
Good stuff.
Cults are great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for wrapping up cults that way with the getting out and because I think, not that I've run into a lot of ex-cult members, but it is hard to put yourself in that position and be like, it feels like, oh, I would never join a cult.
Exactly.
And I would never be in that situation, but which can make it very easy to judge people that are coming out of these situations.
That makes me think of abuse situations, like you were saying.
We don't know how they ended up in there or what their life was like.
That's all.
I got nothing. No.
So, who likes electricity?
The dog man of Michigan.
That's absolutely right.
He loves electricity. But do you know who doesn't love electricity?
Who?
Sliders.
The hamburgers.
Yes.
Tiny hamburgers.
They hate electricity. No, so to preface, this is probably the most woo-woo thing I will ever talk about on this podcast.
She says, I'll get her there, guys. I'll get her there.
And I got no scientific research for this because none exists.
Okay.
So sliders are individuals who cause electronics to do strange things just by being around them. This is also known as high voltage syndrome, and they're called sliders. It used to be when this phenomenon first started happening, it was originally noticed with streetlights. So it was street light interference SLI, so sliders.
Oh, okay.
That's where it's dumb. It's an awful name, but that's where, and really hard to Google, believe it or not. If you type sliders into Google,
yeah, you get what I thought
of.
And you told me you're going to do this topic, and I was like tiny sandwiches.
I'm going to do a whole podcast about small hamburgers.
As long as you bring some, I'm cool.
Right?
But, like,
we're going to taste test hamburgers. So sliders or high voltage syndrome has been around since 1837, which I assume is when electricity started to be a thing. And I remember as a kid being told, if you're driving past a stoplight and it goes out, or a street light and it goes out. Have you ever had that happen?
I've had it happen, yeah.
I was told as a kid that was someone in heaven saying hello to you.
Oh.
Which I think is adorable.
I agree.
So every time I see one, I think of someone that has passed. Well, many people assumed that was their power. You know, just by being near the street light, they make it blink out. Recently, this actually came up. I read a book, and I may have mentioned these books before. It's called the Happy Cat series, and it's adorable. They're just cheesy little romance novels. They're by Pippa Grant and Lily Valente, and this one specifically was called Hitched. And the main character, she owns a farm. She's trying to save an alpaca. It's super cute, but she is a slider. So she, like, when she gets super upset or super tense, you know, her car would stop working, or the lights in the courthouse go out. She just has all of these issues. I also chose this topic because I have been known to have to call IT at work pretty often, and I often hear the words, this is new. I've never seen this happen before. Again, there's no scientific research here. I could not find a single Google Scholar article where they investigated this or looked it up. But I think it's a little suspicious that there's no research to disprove this either. But there's definitely no research out there that proves any of this.
I don't believe it. I choose to believe.
The one couple notes I found that did try to disprove it, a lot of it is just that these people that claim they have this effect, it's not repeatable. There's no way I could, have my issue with the printer at work, call the IT company, have them fix it, and then cause the printer to do whatever it did again.
And it's not like you're doing that to the printer at work and then coming here and doing it to the mic and our stuff.
Yeah, as I'm sitting here, I'm not exploding everything. The people that do have these issues, it's not a constant daily.
You shock people a lot?
I do.
You can't be in my cult.
I'm going to start my own cult. The slider cult. We're going to eat many hamburgers and shock people.
See, people are going to be so confused when they show up at your meetings and there aren't any tiny sandwiches.
We will still have those too. And you'll have to get into there by
sliders.
Yes, we only watch that show, and to get into the room you have to take a slide.
I want to join your cult.
Creating the best cult. Yes.
Sounds like so much fun.
So there are a million anecdotal stories about these phenomenons, but again, no scientific research. Wikipedia had some links that talked about, reasons streetlights go out on their own, and the older sodium style lamps, that's like how they fail. As they get older, they start to cycle on and off. So you see that more often in those old sodium lights. And they also talk about how the people that do believe they have these powers, it's more of a confirmation bias. Because I see streetlights go out all the time now, and it's because someone told me as a child that it was someone in heaven telling me hello. So I see it all the time. But if you're not looking for streetlights to go out, you probably just don't notice that streetlights go out. So I'll include some anecdotal stories at the end, but a lot of them are, the streetlights. People mention streetlights going out, but they'll talk about how they can't wear watches because the batteries die, or they only last like a couple months. Computers, cell phones, cars, light bulbs, basically anything with electricity. And it's not every day, it's not all the time, but it's noticeable enough that it's more than the people around them. So some of the stories, they've gone through 6 washing machines or 6 vacuum cleaners. And which is astounding to me. And you almost feel like there has to be something there, right? Because I don't go through. Yeah, those are the stories that got me. Like, how do you go through 6 washing machines? But then other people would know, have they had their electrical system checked at their house? Oh. So is it really them, or is it the fact that their electrical system was put in the 1930s and they haven't updated?
Bowling balls, like
right. And a lot of times they talked about that the power or the phenomenon gets worse when they're agitated or stressed. Some people would talk about like they were having an argument and a light bulb would burst or the power would go out. In the romance novel that I mentioned, I said, you know, when she's irritated or upset, those things happen.
Which, look, okay, but like, if you and I were having an argument, wouldn't it be super cool if I exploded a light bulb?
Right?
Not for you, but for me.
But in general. There are a lot of websites out there that weren't so reputable or believable, a little bit woo-woo, that tried to come up with different scientific, I'm making air quotes here.
She is making air quotes.
Theories about why these things happen. And it has to do with like your electrical energy in your body or static electricity or something along those lines. When this episode airs, I'll link some of them. Actually, no, I probably won't. You can Google it and find them.
You owe people Voynich materials today.
I do.
And
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reminder.
I got you.
The most interesting part to me is, out of all these stories, no one really wants this power. So again, going back, like, there's no scholarly research against this, and these people are losing like 6 microwaves at a time, and nobody wants this power because they're ruining expensive appliances. They can't wear a watch. Their phones are always messing up. To, you know, just illustrate how ridiculous my life is, my most recent one, I had to spend hours on the phone and on chat with Frontier tech support because I got locked out of my billing account for Frontier and couldn't get into it. And every time I tried to reset the password, I wouldn't get the like reset password link. But I didn't have any access to my bills, so I couldn't pay them. And when I called to get this figured out, they wanted a PIN number that is only on your bills that I had no access to. So their way to try to get around that is they will mail you a special code that you just then have to call and give them. I did manage to find my PIN on a random sticky note that I wrote down 7 years ago when we first got our Frontier service that was shoved in our paperwork drawer. And when I got back on the line with them, they tried to reset my password, but it would only reset my Frontier email password, which I had access to, but not my Frontier billing account. And everyone I talked to was like, I don't understand. This problem doesn't make sense. And finally, one guy, he was like, you're going to have to use a new email address. I'm just going to reset your whole account to this new email address and just be done with it. I was like, that's fine. So now I can get into Frontier, but I don't know what happened to that other account.
At least you're not draining phones and stuff.
True.
That would be really inconvenient.
So other people's stories, and I stole these all from a Reddit thread. You can find it, and I'll just share a couple. So the first one, he says, when I'm stressed, all computers and electronics around me quit working. My touch screen does not respond for me. I went through 5 computers in 7 years at a government agency. And I don't even have to be touching the computer. The operator at the bank, pharmacy, etc. has said, that's weird, my computer stopped working. So many times. I can't wear a body bug, Fitbit, or watch. They all die within a few days. And again, these are Reddit stories. I obviously can't prove any of these.
No, but this bro definitely works for the CIA as some sort of experiment. Right. Because he was in a government agency.
Yeah.
And drains computers. I bet he's never tired.
Oh, because he's getting all this energy. Oh, I want to be a slider. Another one says they were a computer tech for 20 years and an occultist in their whole life. I worked for a little mom and pop shop for many years, and there were some people I almost didn't want to let in the door. They were all frequent flyers, so it wasn't even just in the shop, but every time they would come in, computers and machines that had been working fine would act up, or ones that I was working on would develop new and interesting problems. The opposite was true for a person or two, possibly me. Sometimes I've been working on a machine or another tech has, and all I'll do is look at it or touch it, and they start behaving.
No.
My favorite Rob Morton story, who, rest in peace, he has passed on. When we were hanging out, he had come to my house, but there was a storm rolling in, so we went to the beach to watch the storm roll in, and while we were at the beach, the power went out at my townhouse. So we got back to my house, and the power was out, and I remember sitting on the couch with him, and I said something like, man, I wish the power would come back on, and he was like, okay, and I swear on my soul, the lights came on the minute he snapped his fingers. And he never let me live that down. So maybe he was the opposite.
Could be.
He could make power turn on.
Maybe he was the guy that worked at the CIA. He had all the energy, and he was like, I guess I'll give a little to turn on.
That would explain a lot about him. This one says, so it says, me with computers and phones. It doesn't matter where I go, the minute I walk up to the register, it suddenly isn't working. If I hold any cell phone in my hand, you can watch the battery rapidly drain. If I look something up and hit the back button, it'll just shut down. iPhones, Androids, doesn't matter. My husband and two of my best friends are in IT. They have walked me through processes in person and had to stop many times to say, why is it doing that? It shouldn't be doing that. I worked in an office that had a computerized permanent coffee machine, meaning it was attached to the plumbing. And of the 6 people in the office, it was used many, many times a day. If I used it, it would short circuit, blow the plumbing, and we'd have to shut down the office to stop the flooding.
Oh my gosh.
And then the last one I had says, lights will always flicker when I walk into a room. Like even lights that are brand new. Lights that have been working perfectly for months. Lights that have no issues at all. No wiring problems, no bad bulbs. One time it even got so bad when I walked into a store, all the overhead lights and cash registers, computers, etc. all flickered within a certain radius of me in particular. There was about a 10-foot radius. Everything just briefly shut off and came back on as soon as I walked in the door.
I would like to believe that some people just have this innate ability, not even ability they can do anything about, just that they sort of drain power.
Yeah. Well, and some stories mentioned it started after like an event. Like one guy said he got hit by lightning.
Oh.
And that one I can almost believe. Like
Yeah.
if you were hit by lightning, I could see a scientific explanation that it messed with your body's electrical system and now you affect things weird. But another guy said, or I think it was a woman said it was like after a traumatic car accident. And why would that make you more sensitive to electricity?
Right.
So a lot of them did say it was like a trauma event or electrical based, but some people are just born this way, I guess.
They're all X-Men. That's how X-Men are triggered. By some sort of emotional event.
So I think you're,
Absolutely.
You just
correct.
solved this whole problem. I don't even need to do this. You can just cancel this podcast episode. We just solved it.
I choose to believe. I think that's kind of cool.
I kind of do too. I mean,
Well, it wouldn't be
all
okay.
those this was what 3-4 stories from Reddit. There were multiple Reddit threads I could have gone through. There are multiple websites and just probably hundreds of stories. And I have my own weird stories. I cannot tell you how many times I've been standing at a register or a bank or calling IT at every company I've worked at and had to say, yeah, I have that effect on things.
And if you think about it, though, really scientifically think about it, there is like a version of electricity in every human body.
Absolutely. That's how our hearts work.
And if
And our
you
brains.
want to go into this, they even say some of like the hauntings and stuff are that residual energy.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you feel about it, that's what they say. And why couldn't it be that there are some people who physically affect the atmosphere around them, the electrical impulses and electrical pulses, whatever, around them? Like, why is it that's not that far-fetched?
Right.
I mean, maybe some of them are just literally bad luck, or people doing that, what's like, there's your sign kind of thing.
Right. And the confirmation bias, like I said, I see streetlights go out all the time, but it's because I've always looked for them.
for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
I I was surprised.
I've been enjoying your sliders cult. And I refuse to believe this is your most woo-woo topic. I'll get you there. Okay, look though. You started with plants.
That's not woo-woo at all.
You went into Greek mythology.
True.
And then a mysterious book. Manuscript, which is even more mysterious than a book.
That was still
and
one of my
sliders.
favorites.
I think your next topic is falling away slightly, but I've already brought you down this path.
It's true. You have turned me to the dark side?
to
the electrical side?
Weird dumb side.
The woo-woo side?
The woo-woo. Which sounds a lot like woohoo, which is what it's called in Sims when you do the dirty. So it kind of freaks me out.
I'm on that side too. That'll be my next topic.
Dungeons and Dopamine After Dark. I tried to say that in like a way, and I don't know if it worked.
It did. It was great.
Cool. Thank you.
We should use it for commercials.
And Dungeons and Dopamine podcast. Listen to us anywhere.
Ooh, you're good at this.
I don't like that. I'm good at this.
Dungeons and Dopamine magazine says Dungeons and Dopamine After Dark is the best After Dark show.
Woohoo along with us.
We'd be the worst at like an After Dark.
Gosh. I'm so like not the person for that.
Or I'd turn it like scientific.
This was Dungeons and Dopamine podcast,
episode 41.
Woohoo!
And you can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and on YouTube.
You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/dungeonsdopamine and at Comic-Con this weekend.
Yay!
Well, it'll be this weekend when this episode comes out.
Perfect. You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit.
You can message us on any of those,
please,
as well as dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
And Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions. Again, you will see us at Comic-Con this weekend in Muskegon. Come see us. Come roll for prizes.
Come dressed as Bucky Barnes.
Or
tinfoil
Loki.
Oh yeah.
Or
Pedro Pascal.
Anybody, really. We're not picky.
Yeah, honestly. All right.
We
love you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.